What's going on, guys? Nick here. Today we are going to be installing Rokblokz mud flaps onto my 2012 Subaru WRX hatchback. Today we're going to have to do a voiceover for it. Although it was really nice out the day that I filmed this, there was a bunch of wind and the wind kind of destroyed the sound quality of the video. So I'd figured that I would rather film the video separately and then do the voiceover on top of it. Quick overview of these Rokblokz mud flaps is nowadays they have engravings on them rather than stickers, so they seem like they've stepped up their quality quite a bit over time, but I'm going to show you guys the comparison between these and the ones on my BRZ. Okay, walking over to the BRZ in this part of the video, you can see that I've had Rokblokz mud flaps on this car for quite a while. They have held up very well. The stickers, on the other hand, did not. That's why I really like to emphasize in the video that they have like engraved and painted on now, so it's a lot higher quality of a product. But as you can see over time, these mud flaps really haven't warped. They haven't from scraping. They're not chewed up on the bottoms. They're pretty straight, as you can see that in this clip of the video. I like to compare these to the Rally Armors because they're a lot cheaper than the Rally Armors, but I feel like they're a lot stiffer and they're a lot higher quality of a product. They don't really like flop around too much. As you can see, the front is where a lot of the scraping happens, but they're still not very bent and not too chewed up on the bottom. So they've really held up over time, and I'm really happy with them. So that's why I did buy them for the WRX hatchback. Okay, so we are going to start installing the mud flaps. We're going to start with the rear. They seem to be the easier ones to do. You'll see in the video that the front ones are a little bit more difficult, a little bit more involved in it, but that's not too bad. So we're going to jack up the car, remove the wheel, and show you how to install these mud flaps. So anytime you get Rokblokz mud flaps, the instructions are very well detailed. There's always pictures, and all of your hardware is labeled exactly where it needs to be on the car. Everything is labeled out really well. We're going to have to remove this clip here that I'm pointing at right now. It pops out. You put a plastic little piece in there and a little spacer, and it holds the mud flap flat against the back of the car. When the camera focuses a little bit better here, you'll be able to see there are two holes, one on the top that I'm pointing at there, and there's one below it as well. A little metal clip is going to slide on over them so that the clip allows a screw to go through. You're going to use washers on the top and bottom, and then on the back there's two washers that are going to be used. I show it in the video a little bit better, but right here I'm talking about the front mud flap install, how we're going to have to remove this plastic fender garnish and the side skirt just to access the holes we need to so that we can install them properly. But we'll continue on right here on the back of the car. Okay, in this part of the video, I am removing the plastic clip on the inside of the fender liner. Just take a flathead screwdriver, pop it out. It's not really going to matter if you break it. You're not going to be reusing this piece. A little plastic piece is going to be taking its place with a hole in it so that a screw can go through it with the spacer as well. So you don't need to reuse that. These metal clips that I'm putting on the bumper right now are also little clips so that screws can go through them. In older kits, they went on a little bit easier. These ones went on with quite a bit of force, so just try not to break them and try not to hurt your fingers when you're putting them on because they do take quite a bit of force. But once you have those on, a screw can go through it and hold the mud flap in place, so they're very useful. Okay, at this point we're putting the plastic piece in where the clip used to be. There is a hole in it, as you can see, so that a screw can go into it. There's also going to be a little circular piece that's kind of like a spacer that's going to take a space in between so that the mud flap can sit flat and it's not being bent too much. I'm holding it right there. You're going to use a washer on the screw on the face part of the mud flap, and then put a washer on the other side right before this spacer goes on, and then put the screw through. And like I said, on the other ones, you're just going to be taking the screws with a washer on the face side of the mud flap and putting them through the holes. There's two sizes for the screws. One is going to be longer, and the other two are going to be the shorter ones. The shorter ones are going to be going in the holes where the clips are, the metal ones, and then the long one is going to be going in the black one. So this is going to be the finished product. It isn't tightened up yet, but see how there's a little bit of space in the back. And like I said, you put the long screw in the hole in the back. The shorter screws go on the outside ones, and there's a little space in the back. So everything works out. We're just going to have to tighten it up on the car, and then everything will be good to go. Just look at it from the back and make sure everything lines up and the mud flap's not sitting crooked or anything. Just make sure it's nice and flat and it's on there straight, and then everything is good to go. Okay, this is on the driver's side of the car. The clips are on. That clip is in place. Just going to be installing the mud flap just like you did on the other side. But like I said here, like you could kind of use the screwdriver to push the clips on a little bit easier. but we're just going to have to install the mud flap on this side, make sure it's straight, and then we can start working on the front of the car. Okay, here is a short little clip of everything looking finished on the back of the car. Like I said, the mud flaps, just make sure that they're nice and flat before you tighten everything down so that they don't look like they're bowed in or that they're not fitting on the car properly. I'm super happy with the way these came out, especially with the way that the back of the car is looking with the little red trim and the red logos on the mud flaps. Everything's just like blending together, super nice. And I'm happy with also the taillight tint so that it's not as gaudy as the taillights used to be. So like I said, everything's coming really well on the back. We're going to be moving up to the front, and we're going to have to remove the fender garnishes and the side skirt before we can start installing the mud flap. Okay, so we have the front of the car jacked up. The wheel is removed from the car. Before we remove the plastic fender garnish piece, there are going to be two clips. One where that little hole is right there, and then there's going to be another one right on the other side where that hole is. Those two clips are going to have to be removed, so there's a little bit of play in the side skirt so that we can pull it off and remove the fender garnish because it has to come off a little bit so we can get it off completely. So you're going to want to put your hand on the inside of it right there, and you're going to want to slightly pry. There's probably going to be about 7 or 8 clips, I believe, on the inside. So stick your hand in and then just gently tug on it, and it should be removed, no problem, so that no clips are broken and your fender garnish doesn't fall off. Okay, so the fender garnish is almost fully removed in this clip. I'm going to be showing you where all the clips are so that you have an idea of where you're going to be tugging so that a lot of the clips don't break. You're going to have 2 on the top, one there and one there. You go down a little bit, halfway down about, and there's where my hand is. There's going to be 2 more there. And then when you get to the bottom, there's going to be another 2, but the side skirt is going to be holding one of them in place. That's why we're going to be needing to drop the side skirt down, or else that won't be able to remove the fender garnish out completely. Okay, as you guys can see, the fender garnish is completely removed in this clip. You're going to see why that needed to be done in a little bit. But like I said, pull the side skirt out. There's going to be 2 clips holding that in place. But those 2 clips are holding the last clip to get the fender garnish out. That's why the side skirt needs to be dropped a little bit so that you can successfully remove that piece to continue with the install. Okay, once you have the garnish completely removed, we can now move on to the inside of the fender liner where a little bit of clips are going to have to be removed. We have one on the top there, and then on the side here, we're going to have one on the bottom, one in the middle, and one on the top. These clips are all going to be removed so that the fender liner can be brought back a little bit and we can access holes for a bracket to install the mud flap. Okay, so this is the bracket that's going to need to be installed. The whole point of it is the holes that the mud flap would have originally attached itself to are going to be underneath the fender garnish. So this bracket, what it's going to be doing, it's going to install itself onto these holes where the fender garnish is underneath. You're going to put the bracket on, and there's going to be 2 other holes that stick out on the bracket a little bit farther out so that the flap can be installed with the garnish in place. What you're going to need to do is there's these black plastic clips. The black plastic clips are going to be going on the holes on the actual fender itself and going in with the Phillips head screws to hold that bracket on. And then when you're installing the mud flap, as you can see with the bracket installed, we're going to be taking those metal clips and putting them on the outside so that, like, you take the holes where they were, extend them out farther so that the flap can be installed outward with the same pieces. So everything I explained, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have the Phillips head screws with washers holding on with the plastic clips on the actual fender itself. And then as you were installing the mud flaps regularly on the back, the metal clips are going to go on and the flaps are going to be installed into those 2 holes. Sounds a lot more complicated than it is, but it's super easy. Okay, as you can see, the mud flap is now installed. You're going to need to install the fender garnish back on the car before trying to install the mud flap. But the front mud flaps, there are 3 holes in the flaps, but only 2 of them are utilized. If you want to use the one on the back there, you can drill it out, but in the instructions it says only if you're going to be doing extreme off-roading to install it. As you can see, the mud flap is held on very well without it, so I opted not to do it. At some point I might, but honestly with the 2, it does a really good job with holding the flap on properly. Okay, so this is one side of the car completely done. You're just going to be repeating the same process on the other side to do the other front mud flap, and then you will be good to go. Okay guys, that's going to wrap up the install on the Rokblokz mud flaps on your 2011 to 2014 Subaru WRX or STI hatchback. I know the sedans and the narrow bodies are probably going to be different, so these instructions are going to be strictly for that. But if you do get Rokblokz mud flaps for your sedan, the instructions are probably going to be just as straightforward as this. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.